Yes, it is. It's good to see everybody again. Kind of exciting day here in our program. It's really the last day of our winter quarter. We come back Monday, we'll start spring practice and kind of get into spring quarter. A couple weeks later than normally what we would do for this time of year, and part of that design was we really wanted to have an uninterrupted 7-week go in our weight room, and we felt like last year with dealing with the time off, the lockdown because of COVID, we just didn't feel like our team hit the strength benchmarks that we felt like that we needed to. And it's been encouraging to see our guys really get after it, and the work that Dave Feely and his staff have done in the weight room with our players. I think we're not even, I mean, we'll continue to lift pretty heavy throughout spring ball, and we'll max out at the end of the semester. We've already had, I think, 30 guys hit PRs. We've got a siren down there in the weight room. When a guy hits a PR, he cranks the siren, and it's been going off out there today. There's actually a group still in there lifting right now, sort of the last lift in this quarter. So it's been fun to see the guys work and develop. We also, obviously, we have a unique situation this year. We have a lot of guys on our roster, more than you would during the spring. But the other bit of encouraging news, we hit the most, champions we've ever had for our winter quarter. Those are guys that don't miss any obligation, every class, every study hall, every appointment, every weight room session, and a great effort attitude and everything they do. And the number of the guys in that group is in double figures higher than it's been for the previous 2 winter quarters we've had in this program. So, a lot of guys doing the right thing in our program. Excited to get on the grass on Monday, get back to playing some football. First 2 days, of course, just in helmets. But it'll be good to be back on Green Tree Field and seeing our guys go out there and compete. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
Thanks, Coach. We're going to start with Chris Stock from InsideTheU. Chris, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, I was just curious if you had any status updates on, guys like Jalen Knighton or any other guys that that might not be out there completely or some, and then also if there's any position changes or guys that you want to give a look at different spots in the spring.
Yeah, Jalen Knighton will be full go for spring. The guys who will be out for spring ball, I mean, obviously Derek King. And Derek is just doing Derek King things in the training room with his rehab. He's smashing every benchmark and every goal that they put in front of him to the point where we almost have to slow him down. But it's been fun to see him, back moving around and being with our guys. Will Mallory and Jade Silvera both had some maintenance work done on their shoulders. They'll be out for spring ball. Al Blades is, he has been cleared now, but is now simply just working back towards fitness. So we're going very slow and being very cautious. And I just heard another siren in there, so there's another PR. So we're being very cautious with Al in terms of bringing him back. I don't have the timetable for where that'll be, but he's cleared back for physical activity, but we're going very, very slowly in terms of how we build back in his cardiovascular foundation. Other than that, there might be some guys that are limited, in terms of getting them back. Jake Garcia will be limited for the first few spring practices, just coming off of an injury he had at the end of his senior year in high school. But he'll be able to do, 7-on-7 and one-on-ones and individual drills and all those type of things. So there may be a few others, but those are the main guys.
Coach, we're going to go next to Manny Navarro from The Athletic. Manny, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. I know you were hopeful that you'd be able to get, recruits on campus during spring ball. Obviously, that's not the case anymore with the NCAA pushing the deadline back. But I'm curious, do you still have plans to maybe have Paradise Camp return in the summer? And, it's in terms of commitments, I know you guys don't have many right now in the 2022 class. Does that concern you at all? Or do you feel like eventually once guys are on campus, things are going to start to speed up in that front?
No, we're not concerned at all about not having commitments because we know everywhere, just talking to the recruits, that once under the assumption that things open up in some way in the summertime, whether even it just goes quiet, which means that they can take visits to your campus it's going to be everyone's going everywhere. So I don't know what good a commitment is, and obviously we've made some strides to sort of get out of the decommitment game here at Miami. So I don't, guys being committed and then running around taking a bunch of official visits in the summertime. There's no recruiting cycle that's like the cycle that this group is going through right now. So yeah, I mean, we're preparing for the summer. We definitely want to have Paradise Camp. We've been talking about it. I mean, some schools are trying to set dates. Some schools are even setting visits without the knowledge of whether the fact that we'll be in a dead period or not. So it's a little bit premature, but we are, ideally, if things go the way we want to, we'll have Paradise, and I think you'll see a lot of guys taking visits in the summer, and I think you'll see a lot of commitments in the summer. A lot of guys committed now. Will they stick? That's always hard to say.
Coach, with David Ferrones from the South Florida Sun Sentinel. David?
Hey, Manny, I wanted to get your take on any players that have stood out in mat drills and workouts. I know it's always tough to name some, and you don't want to exclude anyone, but anyone in particular making, I don't know if like a Jalen Phillips type of transformation, but just something that really stands out, and how to follow after that, if I could.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's always kind of hard to single guys out, but I'll just kind of go on position by position. Tyler Van Dyke is just a beast. That guy's such the way he works, the way he does everything right. I mean, we split our team into these, sort of accountability teams where everything in our program is a competition, including the off-season program, the mat drills. You want Tyler on your team. The guy scores highly in everything, every way you can measure a person in this program. He's top of the charts. The backs have been good. Dom Mamorelli, I think, he was really, really good in our off-season program. Zion Nelson, continues to shine. It's been good to have Navon Donaldson be able to go through an entire off-season program. We've got so much more depth at offensive line. Ja'Kai Clark, because he's lost some weight and is moving around really well. I mean, but you can go on and on with the guys on the offensive line. It's just fun to have as many returning guys in the competition that we're going to have in the spring. That's going to be a big deal for us this spring. Is we're going to, at almost all positions, we're going to rep all kinds of guys with the ones. This will be the most, the big question will be who's a one and who's a two. It'll be as meaningless this spring as it's ever been, because we want to just find out who can play. We just have a unique situation with the depth we have on our football team now. We don't want a lot of guys to feel like they've attained some sort of status at all, because that's definitely not the case. So that level of competition, I think, is really going to be exciting for us. And again, I could go through the list of just guys that have stood out and done well, but it's been I think we've been pleased as a coaching staff of in terms of accomplishing our goals, what we want in the offseason program.
The other question I had was Avante Williams. He announced he was cleared, so getting him back, and then also Jalen Harrell moving to cornerback for the spring. Yeah,
so a couple things there. Avante, just so pleased for him. It's so difficult to come your first year and sort of be told that you can't play, and he had to just sort of do nothing for a long time in the fall, and then he could kind of do some, non-contact 7-on-7 stuff. And just Avante, such a competitor, he just wants to play, and what he really did, and this is the best part of his story, is he really poured himself into his academic performance, got himself off to a great start academically, was pulling A's by the end of the semester, which was great news for him, which is really what we wanted him to be able to do in the fall. And so for him to get rewarded also in the weight room, really was able to transform his body and to be able to do those things, and the joy on his face and in his voice when he found out that he was good to go for the spring was really, really emotional. It was fun to hear. Jalen Harrell, Jalen played corner and safety in high school. He's got some length. We've watched him move around in our off-season program. Certainly, we're a little thin there still, of course, obviously trying to get a guy like Al back in the mix. And we say, it's spring. Let's take a look at Jalen, see what he can do out there. But I could see on our back seven different types of mix and matching. You could guys go from safety to striker. You have guys go from striker to will. There is some positional flexibility there that we'll use the next 15 days to try to find out just who we think can play.
Coach, we're going to go to Barry Jackson at the Herald. Barry?
Hi, Manny. I wondered if you had pursued any linebacker to this point in the transfer portal? Is that still something on your radar as a position you would like to address if the right player emerges? And want to ask you about two of the young linebackers in particular, Austin Cave, what he showed you last year. Obviously, he didn't play as much as Flag. And Avery Huff, certainly, a physical specimen. What does he have to do to be able to get on the field and help you guys?
Yeah, so well, let's talk about those guys, for example, because I think that'll answer the first part of your question. This is a big spring for both Tyreek and for Avery. As I've mentioned before, those are guys that it hurts to not have spring football and the normal summer 7-on-7s and workouts like you normally have, because they just simply have to learn, what they're doing out there in terms of how to get lined up and who to look at and what's your gap of responsibility. And it's not complicated. Obviously, we've had 3 true freshmen start a linebacker in the scheme in the past, but you got to lock in, you got to learn it, and we're gonna have a really good competition this spring. I think those guys understand the urgency this spring. Look, they're still young players. I know in recruiting at times and on the internet there can be a lot of pressure for a guy to get it, and guys get it at different times. But they will get all the reps that they can handle this spring to find out, because the one thing they both have is, as you mentioned, they can both run. Tyreek, that's what we loved about him in high school. They both run, they can both hit, but you got to learn which way to run and who to hit. And so that's a part of it, and that's what they'll do this spring. In terms of the question about the portal, what we'll do is with linebackers, what we would do with any position is if we come out of spring and feel like, maybe we don't have exactly what we need to compete for the things that we want to compete for, then that is an option that's always available. But you got to be smart in terms of how you use your numbers, and how long a guy could be in the program that you would take through that. So there's a lot that goes into all those things. But I'm excited right now about what's on our campus. I think our players feel good about what's on our campus, and now that we get a chance for 15 days to go see what they're all about.
Coach, we've got 2 more for you. We're going to go first to Andrea Adelson at ESPN. Andrea, go ahead.
Manny, you mentioned that De'Eric was smashing benchmarks in his rehab. Can you just tell us where he is right now with that and what next steps are going to be for him? And then as a follow-up, what you're hoping to see out of the young quarterbacks this spring, because you're going to obviously have a lot of time to evaluate them. Yeah,
I think first and foremost with De'Eric, he's at first it was on crutches, and then you see him walking around. Then the other day I'm in the weight room and he's on a exercise bike, and there's almost steam coming off the wheels because he's riding the thing so hard. He can, in a sort of stationary way, he can stand there and throw a short pass and do some of those type things. So, so I think now going forward, it'll just be the functional movements. I mean, we're still only 2 months and change from surgery. So again, it's that point where you start to feel good, and you actually have to slow down. You have to be more careful now than you were the first 8 weeks in essence, because he is getting around a little bit better. And he knows that, and obviously he's doing a great job working with our training staff, is doing a great job with them. In terms of with the young quarterbacks, with Tyler and Jake and Peyton, there's a couple of things. I mean, number one, functionally, you want to see, can they do the things required to play quarterback in the scheme, right? Can they make the reads, make the throws, do those type of things? But I think what's fascinating this spring with De'Eric's forced absence, right? Because we would find those things out even if De'Eric was playing, right? With the reps that they would get, is despite being young guys, can they inspire the offense? Because what we saw is an entire football team, entire locker room transform with De'Eric's presence. It's not just what he can do physically, it's what he does mentally and who he is that just it changes people around him. And I think one of the ways you want to measure a quarterback is do you stoke the belief of the players around you. And so I think that'll be fascinating. And what it's not, you're actually not hoping for everything to go very well for them this spring. You want them to have some adversity to find out how they'll respond to that. And because the one thing is the entire football team is watching you and they're watching your response. So to be able to see them go through that and go through some adversity for the first time, you want them to have some success, but you want them to see them fight back from throwing an interception or making the wrong read and hey, next play, let's move on. So I think all that is going to be great 15 days, a great month for them to go through those things and prove to their teammates that they're the guys to take this program forward.
Coach, this is the last one for you. This is David Wilson from the Miami Herald. David, go ahead.
Hey, Manny. First, a quick one. Spring game, do you know details for that? Where it'll be, when it'll be, whether it'll be fans and all that kind of stuff?
Those things are all still being, ironed out. I would think, unfortunately, right now, given where things are, I think fans is still highly unlikely at this point. We are hoping to be in Hard Rock Stadium the second weekend in April, I believe, 17th. If things go according to plan, that will be our spring game. So it'll be great to be in the stadium, but I don't foresee, from what we're being told yet, just with where we're at. If you look at what's going on right now in college basketball, it's just a reminder we're not out of the woods yet. But be excited to be in the Hard Rock Stadium, and again, to get the young quarterbacks, even in that environment, will be good for us.
And then just this spring, you kind of have touched on it a couple times, but just the amount of players you have right now with the extra year. How does that just affect? It's kind of a big picture question, but how does it affect things? Does it make it easier to make guys make position changes? Or are there certain ways that you're going into this spring that would be different than in past years because of how much experience is coming back?
Well, the way I look at it is that it should make the competition better, because what happens invariably in spring is, you're going to go ones versus ones and twos versus twos, and you may have a two that you really like. What ends up happening is, well, the other side, because usually in spring you have some positions that have a very severe lack of depth. So there may be a guy, it's such a mismatch at times that the twos, it's really difficult to really evaluate a guy on the twos. Our ones on ones should be pretty darn good, and our twos on twos should be pretty darn good now as well. What you normally find that is up front offensive line. Sometimes it's very difficult during spring ball to have two functional offensive lines. So the quarterback drops back, he's instantly sacked. So now you have a whole two secondary. You don't have any idea of whether those guys can play because they can't hold the ball long enough to get the ball thrown out. You remember the scrimmage we had in Hard Rock 3 or 4 years ago where Greg Rousseau had like 17 sacks or something like that, and it was like, okay, are we really finding out? We found out that Greg Rousseau is pretty good, right? But beyond that, I don't know that we're really getting a lot to evaluate from the rest of the football team. So I see something that should have a lot more competitive balance, which to me ultimately gets everyone better, because the reps should be more game-like. And then the other point, because you have experience, you've got guys coming back in the same scheme. If you think about that offensively, that's the first time we've had the same scheme now in a few years. And now you can really start to dive into the details of what we're doing, and sort of make that jump that we expect to make between year one and year two on offense. We're very pleased from where we came from to where we got to on offense, but everybody on that offensive side of this program, coaches, players alike, knows that it can go so much more. And there's statistical evidence of kind of making that year two jump. And best way to make a year two jump is to have 15 really, really difficult practices going against a much more experienced defense. And so I think that's really what this odd opportunity of having such depth will give us.
Awesome. Coach, thank you for spending a few minutes with us today, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you soon.
Yeah, Cam, before I go, I just want to send a little love if I can. We've got a little hurricane named Luca who's going through a courageous battle right now with leukemia. And the one thing we tell our guys on our team is that any tough battles we go through, you never go through them alone. We fight everything as a team. It's kind of the way we sort of build our culture here. And we just want to send, for everybody here in this program, to let Luca know that he doesn't have to fight his battle alone. He's got all the U Nation behind him, and certainly everybody in our football programs behind him. And we got a little something coming his way to show the love and support that we have for him. So just wanted to send that out there.
Awesome.